Good morning and welcome to the annual meeting of At Home in Darien for 2022. I am Susan Baroud, and on behalf of our board of directors, we're delighted to have you with us this morning. We will begin with something rather special. Our first selectman, Monica McNally, is here to offer a proclamation. So I will step aside as she does that.
Thank you, Susan. Good morning, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here. And this proclamation covers a lot, so I'm going to issue it right now. So whereas in the last decade, more than 200 aging-in-place organizations have been formed around the country to assist seniors in ensuring their goal of remaining in their homes as they age. And whereas documented surveys confirm that an overwhelmingly majority of Darien seniors want to stay in their homes as long as possible. And whereas At Home in Darien, a not-for-profit organization, counts every senior age 60 or over as a member without any fees. And whereas At Home in Darien provides transportation, a taxi voucher program, vetted services provider information, volunteer shoppers, visitors, drivers, callers, and small chores assistance, and timely information of senior-focused activities throughout the community, and serves as a resource to all Darien residents. Now therefore I, Monica McNally, First Selectman of the Town of Darien, by the virtue of the authority vested in me, do hereby declare Thursday, December 8th, 2022, At Home in Darien Day. And be it further proclaimed that I encourage every resident of the town of Darien to support At Home in Darien through their generosity of time, talent, and charitable donations to their unique not-for-profit organization. Thank you.
That was an unexpected surprise, but it's very, very nice. So, this year's meeting is taking place in the auditorium of the Darien Library, and it's the first time since 2019 that we've met together. So it's very nice to see everyone here in person. That Zoom can only go just so far for all of us. I want to begin by thanking the library for their hospitality, for this great table of refreshments. They were very gracious, as always, so this is a perfect place to meet. Thanks so much. I have a list of guests that I would like to welcome in addition to Monica. Joe Pankowski is here, Chairman of the Darien Commission on Aging. Michael Werner, Legislative Aging Policy Analyst for the Commission on Women, Children, Seniors, Equity, and Opportunity, is here. Gretchen James, the Grants Manager of Southwest Connecticut Agency on Aging. Gretchen, I don't know, maybe she isn't here yet. Tracy Mara, State Representative. Yep, there she is. Thank you, Tracy. And Melinda Polite, ARP Connecticut Representative. We also have Allie Ramsick, who is on our board, but she is very closely connected. She's the Director of Human Services in Darien. Peter Anook, who takes care of our technical needs, our IT person, and Gretchen Bruno, who does the designs for our, I just spoke with her, Gretchen Bruno, who does all the designs for our Out and About. Kira Parrott, thank you very much. She is the Director of Darien Library. We're pleased to have your hospitality. And our volunteers. We have some volunteers here, so we're pleased to have you with us. This has been an unusual year for At Home in Darien, as we bid farewell to Gina Blum after almost 11 years as our Executive Director. She left at the end of March, but by the end of June, we welcomed Chris Jones as our new Executive Director. Chris has a background in marketing, so he spent the summer becoming acquainted with us specifically, this organization, but becoming acquainted with not-for-profits in general. He has become thoroughly involved in the day-to-day operations as well as our long-term goals and how they relate to the mission of At Home in Darien. We believe he will usher in a new period of growth that will benefit the entire community. Throughout this transition, we have maintained our regular schedule and resumed many of the activities that were suspended for almost 2 years. We've accomplished this primarily because of our wonderful staff, members of whom are here today. Michelle, Sally, Fran, as well as Jane, our driver, were with us through thick and thin, and I would be remiss if I did not recognize them, as well as the board of directors that are a wonderful group in this annual review. Both groups stepped in to address the demands of the office. Their skills and dedication combined to pull the pieces together. The result was that the organization transitioned from one director to the other smoothly and successfully. I thank them sincerely. One significant step forward during this period was to resume offering regular driving schedule. Ridership has increased with each passing month this year. To this end, we hired a second driver. Drew Burke, who is here with us today, started at the beginning of July, right after Chris arrived. This allowed us to once again schedule both of our cars simultaneously, so both the sedan and the handicapped accessible van could be on the road together. We also started offering rides on Fridays that had been suspended in 2019 when Town Hall closed on Fridays. Darien seniors are out and about once again, taking advantage of all that our community has to offer. While we prioritize medical appointments, we feel it is just as important to meet a friend for a holiday lunch. Sometimes that's more meaningful and even could be more beneficial than sitting in a doctor's office. This is what we are here for, keeping seniors involved and connected to the community and their social network. Today we welcome some favorite individuals to discuss the concept of aging in place. With our town changing significantly over the next few years, it's a conversation that must push the direction of Darien development into the future. Sharing space with seniors is an important influence for our children and our teens. Multi-generational communities are a case of the future wisely reverting to the past, where generations learn from each other, living together as neighbors, friends, and extended family. However, before this presentation, we must begin a brief business meeting of the Board of Directors. So I would like to call the meeting to order and ask for a motion to approve the minutes of our last board meeting, which occurred on November 16th, 2022. Do I have a motion? Peter, and a second? From a board member? Jim? Yes. All in favor? The board has had an opportunity to examine the budget for 2023. If there are no further comments, do I have a motion to approve this as distributed? Jim? Robin, second. All in favor? At this time, I'd like to recognize a departing board member. However, I don't think he is here yet. Oh, he is here. Peter. Peter Carnes has been an active member of our board since 2015. He actually stayed. He was supposed to leave last year, but we twisted his arm and he stayed on an extra year. So we will miss Peter very, very much. We will also be bidding farewell to Michael Netter after 2 years on our board. At this time, I would like to ask Monica Billiter, the head of nominating, to introduce the new member that will be joining the board and announcing the slate for the coming. She is. Right behind you. Okay. Thanks, Monica.
Hi. The At Home in Darien Nominating Committee submits the following nominations for the 2023 Board of Directors. For the class of 2025, a term of 3 years, Bob Bayless, Mark Bergen, Monica Billiter, Susan Baroud, and Peter Sasnow. For the class of 2024, a term of 3 years, Marcia Cleary, and I will read her bio after, and for the 2021 Executive Board, a term of 2 years, William Carney, Co-President, Peter Sasnow, Co-President, John Keating, Vice President of Services, Sue Oakey, Vice President, Public Relations and Marketing, and Susan Baroud, Vice President of Events. The ex officio members, a term of 1 year. Marianne Patterny, Book Group Coordinator at the Darien Library, Beth Paris, Director of Darien Senior Program at the Mather Center, and Allie Ramstack, Director of Human Services. Do I have a motion to approve the election of the aforementioned names to the At Home in Darien 2022 Board of Directors? Okay, thank you. And I will read Marcia's bio. Excuse me, I need to turn it this way so I can see. She's Marcia Cleary. I have lived in Darien for over 25 years, and after raising a family in San Francisco and London, I'm currently working for a family holding company and am the administrator of the Foundation for the Blind. Prior to that, I worked in finance, then started a web business designing knitting patterns for about 10 years. I currently serve on the Commission of Aging in Darien. The mission of At Home at Darien is important to me. Providing services to enable elders the opportunity to remain in their homes is a very worthwhile goal, and I'm looking forward to serving on the board. Okay. That's it. Oh, we need to vote on the slate. Could everybody on the board? All in favor? Okay. Okay. Thank you.
And as our final action, we must vote on a corporate resolution. The board has had an opportunity to see this. If there is no further discussion, do I have a motion to pass this? Peter and Mark, all in favor? Excellent. Finally, this is my last meeting as president. I have completely enjoyed the experience over the past 4 years. We represent a wonderful organization of which the entire town should be proud and thankful. Now I want to extend my very best wishes to William and Peter, who assumed this position today. If there is no further business, do I have a motion to conclude the meeting? Jim? Anyone else? Bob? All in favor? It's now my great pleasure to introduce our new Executive Director, Chris Jones.
Susan has really articulated the organization, I think, extremely well. So there's not much I could add to some of the things she said, but what I wanted to do is take a look at the last 5 months since I've been here and look at 2022. Real quickly, I have the honor of introducing our panelists and hosting that, so I'll get to that quickly. But I did want to take a look back at 2022 a little bit, very quickly, and as Susan mentioned, with my marketing and advertising background, I love KPIs, key performance indicators, looking at how we're doing and how can that drive strategy and performance moving forward. So I've got just a few slides, and I'll top line just where we are today, leading into where we're going tomorrow, which is 2023. When I started, one of the first things I heard was the mission statement for At Home in Darien. Helping Darien seniors live independently, comfortably, and with dignity in their own homes and the community for as long as possible. And I've heard that consistently with everybody in the organization. And recently, I was filling out some business documents for a grant, actually, and they asked, what's your organization's greatest strength? So I sat there and I thought, well, the people, yeah, the services that we provide, but then I went back to the mission statement, and I thought, everybody who I've met, from the board members down, from the president of the board, to all the board members, to the staff, to our partners, everybody supports this mission and demonstrates it every day. So I think that's our greatest strength. And we're fortunate to have a client, a writer today, which I'll introduce, and I think she'll be able to give us some different perspective on that. 2002 review, as Susan mentioned, year of transition. Yeah, I was very fortunate enough to begin with the organization in late June. But really what happened was in advance of that. As Susan had mentioned, we were without an executive director for several months. And really it's a testament to Michelle Tracy, Sally Laird, Fran Bellingham, Jane Matthews, and now Drew Burke that really kept this organization flowing and without missing a beat. So I didn't step into a problem. I stepped into something that was solid, and I stepped into an opportunity. I really, really do appreciate that. So thank you. Managing ongoing COVID. This is not unique to us, but I think the story here is we didn't miss a day and we didn't miss a ride through COVID. The drivers, the staff just continue to plow through that. And again, I'm really, really impressed with that. I think the story, and as I get into my KPIs, it's been that increase that we've already started to talk about. And yes, it's a byproduct of kind of COVID. COVID is not in the past, it's always going to be with us. But we're seeing an organic growth in our ridership and the services that we provide. And that is something that's really exciting that's going to take us into the new year. Okay? What I'm going to talk about are those KPIs that I mentioned, the transportation statistics that we look at closely, our volunteer services, the vetted service program. We've had a 27% year-over-year increase in rides. That's fantastic. I think the story here is from August to December, we've increased it 44%. Now you might say, okay, well, Drew started in July. We've been able to accommodate more rides, and yes, that's partly true. But we didn't have a big difference in the rides that we declined from the first part of the year to the second part of the year. Meaning people called us up, and because we only had one rider, we couldn't accommodate that ride. We've been pretty consistent. So this is that organic growth that I talked about. And that's what we need to focus on. And as we build the strategic plans moving forward, those are the things that we need to be ready for. Our average age of the rider is 78 years old. Okay? As Susan mentioned, when anybody turns 60 in the town, they automatically become a member of At Home in Darien. We'd really like to reach a broader base. We're doing great things. We have a 95-year-old rider. We've got 95-year-old visitors visits that we make, but there's a big population out there that we can continue to serve, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, we've had a 63% increase in volunteer rides. Now this does make sense. Earlier in the year, as we only had the one driver, we have an amazing group of volunteer riders, and yes, some of those are here today, that were able to sustain us through that time and that transition that we've talked about. Most of that was in that April to June time period. Volunteer drivers are still going to be really critical for us moving forward. And I made eye contact with Robin, one of our volunteers too. No matter what we do, there are always going to be people who call us at the last minute and say, I need to get down to the Tully Center. And we want to be able to accommodate those rides. Right? We don't want to say no. One thing that's gone down is a decrease in new ridership, and this is a real focal point for us. We want to get new riders. Now, it's not a negative here, because from September to December, we've increased over 50% in reaching new riders. It's a smaller base, but again, it's an important metric that we look at. And as we look at our plan for 2023 and beyond, a big part of that's going to be how do we reach more people in this community to make them aware. Our drivers do an amazing job to let people know of the other services that we provide. Susan mentioned Gretchen Bruno and the out and about. That's the only communication that we have through the entire community. So we need to come up with some ideas, and we're working on that to continue to broadcast. The volunteer services, this could be 3 or 4 slides, and I do want to do it justice, but visiting has been a real important service that we provide. And I was with Michelle yesterday with a volunteer visiting with a resident that wants companionship. And through the isolation of COVID-19, that's something that the seniors really lost. So as we come through that and through some of the state organizations, what we're gonna want to learn, what else is out there that we can do to be able to reduce that isolation and increase that companionship. This, please don't worry about not reading it. It just shows we have a vetted service program, and it speaks, I think, to the commitment and that mission where we identify, vet, review businesses that would like to do work for our seniors. And Sally is all over this every day. We had somebody come in, 2 weeks ago, who came in and said, I'd like to provide handyman services for your organization. And if you look at it, handyman is one of the biggest needs we have. And I'm like, get them to sign, And Sally's like, well, we've got to go through the protocol, of course. And so we need to vet them. You need to give us insurance and references from the town. But again, that's something that a lot of people might not know that we do. But we have some amazing feedback that we get from the seniors who utilize this service. Another thing we do every year is we have a transportation survey. One of the most important things I think any organization can do is to hear from their constituents, their riders, right? We need that feedback, and I think Liz will give us some of that today. But we had 40% of those riders respond. We ask a bunch of questions. How's the experience when they call into the office and they make a reservation? What are the cars like? We want to make sure the cars are clean, comfortable as much as we can. So a number of questions do we ask, but to me what stood out, there's one question that we ask, and again this ties into that mission, did our services help you become independent, and would you recommend those to a friend? And I'm very proud on behalf of the organization, 100% of the people gave us a 5 out of 5. And again, tying back into that mission statement, I don't think you can ask for more than that. And so that's something great. And a gratuitous plug here for the organization. What are they saying? I kind of highlighted a couple of things that tie into that mission statement. Somebody's been riding with us for 10 years or more. The service saved me from depending on others. Well, that's it. We talk about intergenerational activities. We work with a lot of sons and daughters that provide support 5 days a week, but maybe there's that 6th day or the 7th day where they can't. And it's what I talked to Beth about and Allie. How can we reach those individuals? And that ties back also, it's not just the 78-year-old rider who we have, it's the potentially the caretakers that we need to reach to be able to provide details on our services. Okay? Very appreciative of the wonderful service. Okay? I can remain independent. With the service, I can remain independent. I wish I had written that, maybe. And then last one, this was actually said, you adhere to your mission statement. Okay? So that's important. We're going to continue that survey. We're going to build upon that, and I think communicate that within the community. Okay. The last slide, then I do want to turn it over to the next step. Some of the challenges, meeting the demand. We hope that we have that phone ringing to the point where we're looking at a 3rd driver and a 4th driver. Where there were 5 drivers that worked before COVID, and I guess they had different hours, but we certainly want to build that out. And we think that there will be a need for that. Okay. The economy, this isn't unique to us, no surprise there. But I've been speaking to a number of other nonprofits in the community, and it's no surprise, we survive through community donations, and all the organizations are being challenged. And how do we coexist in the community? One of the things I've seen, there doesn't seem to be competition in Darien, and Monica, I think you do a great job in driving this, and the other leaders, there's really collaboration. And these other organizations have reached out, how can we help? And we'll certainly take them up on that to continue to build out. Increasing the volunteer team, Michelle, again, doing an amazing job with that. And there are a lot of services that we can continue to expand. The story here is, and I've mentioned, how do we get to more Darien seniors? There are 4,108 Darien seniors 60 plus. we have 80-plus unique riders every year. 80-plus is great, but that universe is pretty big. Now, the 60-plus might not be in need of rides, or maybe they are. So that's an opportunity. So all these challenges certainly manifest into opportunities, okay? And then really the ongoing challenge. This is really 2023 and beyond. What are the community resources that we need to tap into? And I've kind of touched on those very briefly. It's the other organizations the sister organizations that we will work with. It's the Allies of the world who've been so kind personally to me, and I thank you, Allie, for, I pick up the phone and call and we have challenges. And Beth, who unfortunately is right below us, so I just pop in unannounced all the time. Thank you. So I'm not bashful in reaching out for support, and it's one of the things that we're going to continue to do. Okay, I really am fortunate enough to be able to introduce our three panelists, okay? And I don't like to read, but I'm going to have to because I don't want to miss anything, okay? Peter Etter is a native Manhattanite. He has degrees from 3 major New York universities with a focus in social science. His professional career is over 50 years in advertising, marketing, and public relations organization. He's been a longtime member of the World Future Society. He's written and lectured extensively on that. No surprise, on the study of the future. He retired from work about 15 years ago, and I think Peter might admit that he's been as busy or more busy in those 15 years with his volunteer work. He's dedicated his time to supporting causes in Darien, in Fairfield County, and Connecticut, and I think that's probably how most of you know Peter. He's a close friend of the Darien, At Home in Darien organization. He was a founding board member and still an active volunteer. All of our events, you can see Peter. He currently serves on the Darien Commission on the Aging and the Advisory Council of the Southwest Connecticut Agency on Aging. And in 2017, he received the AARP Ethel Andrus Award for Connecticut. What's really telling about that is there is one per state given out every year for volunteering. So he was one of 50 that year that was acknowledged, and that is extremely impressive. Peter and his wife Kathy, who's here today, who also, I'd be remiss if I didn't say it, she volunteers at all our events. Been married for 59 years. They have 2 kids and 4 grandkids. And on a personal note, for about 5 of those 50 years, Peter was my boss and mentor at one of those advertising agencies. Yeah, so you can blame him. I personally have profound respect and gratitude for everything Peter has helped me with, both through the years and over this past year. Beth Paris. Beth's been working for the town of Darien since 2009, first as a coordinator of the Darien Senior Activity Center, before being promoted to department head in 2014 as the director of senior programs at the Mather Center. She's got just a tiny little bit of experience with the senior community. She's worked in the field for 35 years, specializing in cognitive impairment and community-based services. Before she joined the town of Darien, Beth was a social services coordinator for community at-risk elderly services for the town of Stratford. This included directing a social model adult day program and facilitating family meetings and providing information and referral, as well as one-to-one counseling for caregivers. She's been a support group leader for the Southern Connecticut chapter of Alzheimer's Association since 1991 and was part of a 4-part series caregiver course. She served on the advisory board for Southwest Connecticut Area and Agency on Aging, as Peter now does, and is currently a member of the statewide senior group workshop. She's got a BS degree in gerontology and a BA degree in mental health from the University of Bridgeport. And our third panelist, Liz Pellegrini. Liz was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, and for a long time never left. She received her undergraduate degree in elementary education from Brooklyn College. She continued her education at New York University, where she earned her graduate degree. When she finished college, she started a 33-year career in teaching pre-K to 2nd grade, so we know she's extremely patient.
I used to be anyway.
She used to be. No, don't let her kid you. My first week, I did a ride-along, and Liz is one of the first individuals that I met. And she told me this story. She has a sister who's lived in Darien for 20-plus years. And she said that she was living in Brooklyn, and her sister kept talking to her and trying to convince her to come out to Darien. And she finally agreed, and she said it was the best thing that she ever did. And that really had a mark on me. Again, newbie, first week into it, and I said, that's why we're all here. That's great. So she's going to bring some very interesting perspective to the panel. She's really active. You can find her swimming at the Darien Y, or sometimes in New Canaan Y when the Darien's being worked on, or playing mahjong or cribbage or anything else from the Mather Center. So we welcome them all, and I think before we start, I'd just like to thank you for being with us here today. So a great mix here. We've got state, we've got local, we've got writer, constituent. So worked on a couple questions, and give us a flavor not only of your unique experience in this space, but hopefully some things that we can take away. I know personally I can take away, and Peter and William moving forward, that can help us frame our strategic planning from, for 2023 and beyond. So I'm just going to start right in with Peter, and I'm going to read these so I don't mess up in any way. But Peter, as I mentioned, works on the state level in various areas. He also works on local aging issues. So Peter, can you kind of compare and contrast the state work that you do and the things that you see from the state level with the local issues that you've seen for the last 15 plus years? And really, is there any broader learning that you can share with us to help us with some of the challenges that you know that we face?
Tough question. Yeah. It's a really tough question. Can you all hear me? And what makes it tough is that, we have 169 towns in this state, and they vary greatly by geography. They're urban cities and suburban and rural areas. They vary by economic levels. They vary by housing. They vary by ethnic diversity. So when we look at problems and issues, we're really looking at a very broad spectrum of which our town has one piece of it. But what I want to do, I would suggest, is direct it back to what we're here for today, okay, which is aging in place. So our goal is very simple. It's to help people stay in homes as they age. And when we did our surveys, we found that 88% of the people in our town, this was in 2009 and 2015, wanted to stay in town as they aged, wanted to stay in their home as they aged. Well, guess what? And so we've done it for 12 years, and we've been very successful with transportation, with home visitors, with help around the house, with vetted services providers. In June, I got a copy of a national survey that the University of Michigan did on the same questions, and guess what? 88% of the people in the United States want to stay in their home as they age. Weren't we smart? We're ahead of the curve. We truly are ahead of the curve. They wanted the same things the survey shows. They want help around the house. They want companionship. They don't want to be isolated. They want transportation, and they want people into their homes that they know they can trust. So we've really done that. But I think the answer is, for every one of those communities, there is one common factor. We should all be intergenerational. And what do I mean by that? I mean a town should value its 8-year-old just as much as its 80-year-old. They should have programs that support both. Right? How do you do that? Well, you do that with things like at home in Darien, where there's so many of us now that are not only taking services, but guess what? Giving services, because guess what? Who controls the wealth in towns today? It's seniors, isn't it? And who controls the wisdom and the experience. It's a lot of us older people that have had different careers, right? But we also need the young people to provide us with the support and to realize the value that they can give us through their volunteer work. So, I don't think I answered your question, Chris, but
Well, I also talked about, as part of the questions, to give you an opportunity beyond the questions to speak. And Beth, why don't you start with that before I get to your specific question, just some background, and then I'll get into your question.
Okay, usually people have to use a hook when I talk because I get so excited. I will say this line from Dorothy: there's no place like home. And there's no place like Darien. Because Darien is a place that is able to, by its structure and by the wealth of the people that are here, and I don't mean money, but money helps, by the wealth of wisdom, by the idea that there's such a commitment to what just Peter said, from children all the way to our elderly people. So, and what is, I had this little talk with Chris yesterday, what is a person who ages or is older? There are people that are absolutely ageless in this community. Peter's one of them. The cargo ship we come in may not cooperate, may wear out, may get a little older and have needs and be a little clunky, but who we are inside is the thing that we want to cultivate and that we want to share with the community. Something that our young people need to hear, because we know there's some struggle that's going on because of COVID as well. But the fact that you have this incredible drive here, that people want to stay connected, want to collaborate, and want to get the best for everybody. And that we all have that superpower to be able to do that for one another. Our senior center, case in point, 2014, we moved into a wonderful, beautiful building with the vast efforts of our Commission on Aging, who went through the shuffle with us, and all the supporters, Robin, who was on the building committee. That place itself became an ambassador and a sign of how much Darien values their senior community. That building is also used in the evening from 3:30 on to about 9 o'clock by our Parks and Rec department, by the Darien Arts. So it's intergenerational in that way as well. But the fact that people came in and saw, wow, and I hear this all from also our non-residents that participate in our programming. When they walk through the building, everybody's first word is wow. 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 Now, how do you top wow? I will tell you. By having incredible programs and scheduled offerings and events and entertainments. By being able to listen to the people that come into the building to find out what is it they want, what they want to do. I actually I was in Stratford for 25 years. When I came here, it was, what is the senior center I'd like to go to? This has been like such a wonderful gift, being able to use my own creative imagination, because senior centers need to be modernized in the view, and Michael, my dear friend there, that came down from the state knows that 169 to Peter's point are all very different. But we need to make the idea of coming into something that's really the focal point that should have all the information about what the services are and where to go. Right now, without Ally, without At Home, we would be a single leg in a tripod. We need to be a tripod. We need to be able to collaborate with one another to always give the best. And I think that we've all been here long enough now for the next stage. And the next stage is to modernize ourselves even more for what our community needs here, and to be a real a voice of advocacy for, I just wanted to mention the Aging Well Collaborative. I just attended a seminar for them too. I think it's so wonderful because that's about people feeling that have cognitive impairments, which is very near and dear to my heart, not because eventually I will probably have them, but because it's looking at community-based services so people can stay at home. So there could be more exquisite services on the ground so people never need to go into an assisted living. If you need to, you need to. If you need to go into long-term care facility, but to stay home as long as you possibly can with being surrounded by the things that you love and the people that you love is really the point of what we're doing here together.
Just about to cut you off. Okay,
Yeah.
good job. Okay, no, good. I'll come back to you with a question. I think all of our riders are special. Liz Pellegrini might be especially special. Brooklyn's obviously very different than Darien. So my question for you, Liz, since you came out, it's really to talk about your experience. Are there any surprises? And can you speak to the services that you've experienced here in Darien and why this has become so special for you?
Well, I think the biggest surprise to me was the variety and the depth of the services that were available, because there's a prejudice in New York that, we got the best and the this and the that. And it's very easy when you live there all your life to just assume, well, every place else is just podunk. And I was really amazed at, this amazing library, beautiful Y, this beautiful senior center, the lovely senior housing building that I live in. And it's like, wow, this is, who knew? And it's just amazing how everything's easier here. It's like, in Brooklyn, everything is like you have to fight the bureaucracy a little bit. And I just don't find that here at all. Everything's much more accessible, I guess, for want of a better word.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm going to go back to you, Beth, quickly. This is kind of a selfish question to some degree, kind of a long question. So you're on the front lines. You talked about that a little bit. You see seniors every day, and you engage with them. And you see the spectrum from vibrant, self-sufficient to maybe more need. And we've talked about some of those situations, work together in some of those situations. We have 3 separate organizations that, from a geographical standpoint, are within 200 yards of each other, with the Human Services in the Town Hall, and At Home in Darien, and the Mather Center. So how do you see these 3 organizations? I mentioned collaboration before. How do you see us, and I should ask you too, Allie, but how do you see us collaborating moving forward? And what should be the key areas of focus for the 3 of us as we partner?
Allie could answer this as well, but I think that collaboration has been at the basis of everything that we've done from the beginning. I think as we move forward, we need to look at more collaboration and more opportunities for collaboration for the new service needs that there are. When we have somebody new come into the senior center and we identify them as a Darien resident, I have a paper that I hand to them that says specifically what we do, specifically what Allie does, specifically what At Home does. Now that doesn't mean there's no overlap, that doesn't mean that we're not collaborating, but it's an efficiency to help people understand where to go if they need something specific that is our expertise. So we all have an expertise, but we need to share that expertise, which we do. We hope to start meeting, because Allie and I did meet on a monthly basis with Gina. We hope to start doing that with you as well. And we shared, sometimes not necessarily specifically who the individual was, but if there were needs or concerns or problem solving that we wanted to do together in order to have somebody have a better quality of life, we did. Lots of times there were folks that Allie knew about that I didn't know about that we needed to introduce to the center, people that we didn't know had driving needs or some other, maybe a vendor need. So us meeting once a month is really helpful. We can go back to doing that again. But I also think maybe we come up with, and this is going to be a problem-solving thing, and I think something that might even be fun for us, some sort of even packet that we all give out in unison that tells what each one of us does to show from the get-go that we are connected. From the get-go that, there isn't competition. I said this to Chris the other day. In services, there's no room for competition. It has to be collaboration. It has to be a real understanding and a validation of what each one of us does, because that makes us all stronger, it makes us better service providers. So I think the more that we put that face on it, because so many people come in And they're confused understandably. They're looking for my boss, Chris, or it was in the past my boss, Dana, or they're looking for Ally for something that they didn't even know that Ally did, that Ally exists and all that she does. You cannot imagine what goes on in that office. I just want to give a shout out to Ally from the standpoint of, because Ally's the person in terms of case management for those people that really struggle and have no one. You cannot imagine what she does and what she gives. You know, which just brings me to tears when I think about all that she does do and the time and the heart she puts into it. And so it's important that we support each other in a really strong way and that we get better at it. I think you have your, you know, At Home in Darien, when I first came, didn't really have its identity yet. You just started in 2008. It's got its identity now, as you have established. So now it's time for us to do more. So this is the exciting time.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and you're speaking community, and you know, as I mentioned before, speaking to some of these other nonprofits, you know, it's that collaborative approach that's been great. Right? I've asked some questions that normally, if you're in the business world, somebody might say, "Oh, this is what I'm doing," but it's been really refreshing. Peter, COVID hit everybody. You know, and we've been talking, I've had a couple conversations recently about kids and how it's affected kids, you know, but seniors obviously have been impacted severely. So based on what we've seen and how it continues to unfold, how do we prepare today, tomorrow, for what we see in the future? COVID's going to be here. It might be something else, I hate to say. So as an organization like At Home in Darien, or the Mather Center, or Human Service, how do we help prepare ourselves?
Knowing I was going to be on this panel, what I did in the last month is I looked at topics that were emerging, if you will, to see what we need to do as we look down the road. I just said we did a great report card in providing what is needed now, but what's going to be needed down the road. Let me give you just 4 very quick examples. Number one, the library has put together a technology survey of seniors in this town. The report isn't final yet, but I went and I looked at it and I read it. And what's interesting is more and more of us have bought better phones, computers, because we realize with COVID now that there is a role that we must have this in our homes. And so what we're saying is, and what their survey is telling us, is folks want to come, and they have, to the library, to the Mather Center to begin to do their learning. But what really is needed is that this learning has got to occur in the house. It really is. Where are you going to put your computer? What kind of telephone service do you have? What kind of lighting do you have? So that's one area that I think for At Home in Darien that you need to look at, okay? A second area is really quite recent. On November 22nd, there was an article, maybe you should go to the hospital at home. And what this article is, it's about a program where people that are in the hospital, instead of going into a long-term or short-term care facility, can go into the home. And again, you know what? We're not blessed. We're not a hospital town. We're not a university town. But we sit between 2 major hospitals, right? We sit between 4 major institutions of learning: UConn, NCC, Sacred Heart, Fairfield, and they all have programs for gerontology, for social services, for teaching aids and needs. And we need to start to say to these folks, hey, there's 4,000 of us here that are 60 years of age or older. How can we work together? I mean, maybe we can be a test bed for you. Maybe we can work with you on something, or maybe you can begin to provide us with services. The most amazing thing in this little article was that Medicare has approved something called acute hospital care at home, and there are 256 hospitals in 37 states that already have the approval to do this. A third example. Last week's New Yorker. I don't know if you read it, but there's a long article. It's an expose, actually, on hospice. okay? And what did it say? It said 1 out of 2 Americans today will die at home in hospice. Isn't that, I was astounded by that. Are you surprised by that? 40 years ago, 50 years ago, when hospice was founded, it was a non-for-profit. Today, 80% of hospice providers are for-profit. And guess what? As this article shows, it's become the same kind of a tangle, if you will, that home care providers are, that getting into nursing homes are. And it becomes more complicated because, you know, when you used to go to hospice, you ended up leaving it by dying. Well, there are hospice today where you go into it and then you come out of it and you go back into it. But again, with lots and lots of complications. So here's an area, again, where Joe, we need lawyers, and Michael, we need legislators. And we need to take a look at this, and we need to say, how can we help me, Kathy, and those of us that are members of At Home in Darien, begin to think about this and deal with it. Because guess what, folks? We're all going to die. We're just all going to die. But so these are coming. And you know, one last thing. I'm going to add one word. In the last 2 days, I've seen a new word enter our language. The word is kinlessness. Does anybody know what kinlessness is besides Beth? And so there are over 1 million people in the United States now over the age of 55 that are living without a spouse, a partner, a child, an elder, or a sibling. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? And guess what? What's At Home in Darien built for? What are aging in place organizations built for? This very thing. So I think we need to focus on the future as well as doing our work day to day and develop these programs over a period of time.
Great, thank you. So we're getting to just under an hour, so I'm going to wrap this up. I think every organization needs to hear and listen to their customers, and we try to do that in different ways. But the last question, I'm going to leave for Liz. And we didn't talk about it. I don't know the answer, so keep my name out of it. But if there are things to improve or things that you think we could benefit from, based on your experiences with us today, what would those be?
Well, I mean, you do a fabulous job, and I'm really nitpicking in these things I'm saying, thinking, what I've heard from other people and what I see as ways that we could maybe be more efficient a little bit. Like one thing for me, I'm very comfortable with email. So I think it might be nice to have like an opt-in where instead of making the office staff call me every day to remind me about when my rides are, like on Friday I could get an email for the following week, and then you guys don't have to bother. I mean, I know there are clients that you have to call anyway, but there may be an opt-in where you can have a certain percentage of your clients and lower the workload. Another thing I hear from all my neighbors is how they don't like to drive at night. So if there was an opportunity to like do some sort of partnership where when the library is having a movie, or when some event is happening in town, like you did with the football games, where you say, okay, for this event, we'll do rides for people. Or even just have one night a month where if you need to go somewhere at night, we can arrange it or whatever. So sort of work out some night driving, because I know when I talk to my neighbors who drive, the vast majority of them don't like driving at night, or don't drive at night.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, again, in terms of the Royal, we have 55 seniors living. If there was some sort of thing where we knew every Wednesday you were going to take people to Good Wives, so you don't have to book it, you just know, come down at 11 o'clock and they'll take you to Good Wives for an hour. Those were the ideas I came up with.
That's great. And hearing you, I've just volunteered you for a new committee.
Okay.
That just came into my mind.
As long as there's not so many people in the
We're gonna get you and 2 other riders, and we're gonna get that feedback. That's fantastic. And yeah, I think we would love to be able to drive at night, extend our services. That's a goal for the upcoming year. We've got one more order of business, but I really would be remiss. I talked about transition at the beginning. Through much of those first 6-7 months, Susan really carried the load with Gina having left. And again, things went as smoothly as I could see when I started. But I just really wanted to thank you for everything you've done for me and making my onboarding easy. And it's going to be difficult, but fortunately you're staying on the board, so you can't run, you can't hide. And I do look forward to working with Peter and William also. And Peter and William, do you guys want to come up for the... Should we have the other, should have Monica and the other board members?
Yes, just to continue, Susan, thank you. Your leadership, your service, and the last 3 years have not been easy, and you really got us through and left us really in a great place. And as Chris said, we're very excited about working with you in the future. So, thank you.
I'd like to add one little piece to this. The search committee to find Chris vetted in excess of 100 resumes, talked to at least 85 of those 100 people, went through this process for literally a month and a half, and I've got to tell you, Susan was just a stalwart in this. She just stayed with it, helped me tremendously. And she's just done a tremendous job in tough times, keeping things steady. And it's a real thank you from all of us, because we could not have made it through COVID and through the changes we went through without your leadership.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
You want to wrap it? Well, I want to thank our panelists. I think, as you can see, you don't have two stronger individuals with this subject than Peter Etter and Beth Paris, and a great spokesperson representative as Elizabeth Pellegrini. So thank you for participating. We've got a little gift from At Home.
Well, thank you all. I did not expect the flowers, but I'm very grateful for it. Thank you. I wanted to just make one comment. When I moved to this town, there was a program at the YWCA of mothers who drove teenagers in the evening. I can't remember what it was called, but on Safe Rides. And we sat, and parents, when somebody called for a ride, we went and picked up the teenager. When we mention now the idea of seniors needing rides, if there's a community around that could pull it together, it's this community. I think it's a need. I think it's a great idea. Thank you. Thanks for the suggestion. So there's a lot to be done. I think this is just the beginning. Thank you all very much. This has been my great pleasure to be the leader. Thank you.